This will be the third class we've had. Let's review a little bit from the last few weeks before we take our weekly quiz. This time we not only have craisins, we have white grapes, dehydrated, shriveled raisins, whatever you call them. There are 4 great questions that people try to answer, and all religions try to answer. Who can name any of those questions? Who am I? Another one. Where am I going? Where did I come from? There we go. And where am I going when I die? There you go. Who else got one? Back there, did he get one? Okay. Oh. So those are 4 great questions. Every religion tries to answer those. The 3 lies that Satan told to Eve, who can name any of those? Deny God's word, and then what? Cause doubts about God's word, and deify mankind. Was that Steve? Got that one? All right, there we go. Let's see. How many times in Ezekiel did Lucifer say, I will? 5 times. Man, this guy's on the ball. You like raisins? He didn't have supper or something, or what? Okay. Let's see, that'll be for tonight. Then last week we talked about the quiz, the different types of, we covered for the quiz tonight, the different meanings of the word evolution. I had a debate a couple days, yesterday? Where was I? Arkansas. Little Rock, Arkansas, and I debated a professor up there. I've learned that if I have 2 more debates coming up scheduled. If you start off defining what you mean by the word evolution, the argument's basically over, because there are 6 different meanings to the word, and this is something we'll be quizzed on tonight. Cosmic evolution, that would be the origin of time, space, and matter, i.e. the Big Bang. They have no evidence for this at all, but they believe it happened. After that, the Big Bang supposedly produced hydrogen, which then you'd have to have billions of years of chemical evolution. Now, what I'm doing now in my timeline, on here, I start off not only with my 20 billion year timeline, I add cosmic evolution would be here, and then you'd have chemical evolution somewhere in here. After that, you'd have to have stellar and planetary evolution. The stars and planets would have to form. Nobody's ever seen that happen, but they believe that it did. And then you finally get to number 4, which is organic evolution. Now you have to get the origin of life. Life has to get started from non-living material. Most textbooks, it's hilarious to watch, they'll spend a whole chapter talking about Francisco Redi and Louis Pasteur, saying how life cannot come from non-living material. Then the next chapter, it says, however, we believe life came from non-living material. I just say, don't you see what you just did? Organic evolution would have to be here. Then you'd have to have macroevolution, which is changes between different kinds of animals. And finally, you get to microevolution. Now, that one is scientific. The rest of them are pure religion. They just don't happen. And they're always arguing about, where's the border between micro and macro? I say, well, I don't know, and that's a good field of study. We ought to be working on that. However, that doesn't prove the other 5 are part of evolution. I now use the term, I say they smuggled these other ones in when nobody was looking. They smuggle in micro. Microevolution's a fact, but they smuggle in the rest of them as if it is part of science, and it's certainly not. Okay, we also talked about, in 1933, a very famous document was written called the Humanist Manifesto. One of the signers of the Humanist Manifesto was a fellow named John Dewey. John Dewey was one of the most influential people in the world, at least in America, when it comes to public education. John Dewey, a humanist, and he went to Vermont to the Teachers College and just led a secret, quiet revolution, so to speak, in training teachers who later became principals and deans at colleges. And basically our education system was taken over by the humanist philosophy, largely because of the work of a guy named John Dewey. There's a Latin phrase that means single spoken sentence. What is that Latin phrase? Universe, right, interesting. The evolutionists are always talking about the universe. Say, do you know what that means? Single spoken sentence. God said, let there be. Well, who remembers last week some of the problems with the Big Bang Theory? What does it not explain? Doesn't explain where the matter came from. What else? Where did the energy come from? Where the laws come from? Why do we have clumps of matter called galaxies and zillions of miles of nothing in between? I mean, if the Big Bang Theory were true, matter should be evenly distributed. And it's not. And retrograde motion. Everything's not spinning the same direction. Those are some of the problems with the Big Bang Theory. Okay, any questions? Also, we covered the word thermodynamics. Who remembers what that means? Heat for thermometer, and dynamics for power. Dynamite means heat power. And there are basically two laws of thermodynamics. One says things can't create themselves. Second one says everything's falling apart. We don't see anything improving. Somehow they think if you just add energy, things will improve. Well, the sun adds energy all the time to the earth, but it doesn't improve anything. It destroys everything. Except one thing is able to use the sun's energy. Chlorophyll. If it weren't for that, the sun would destroy everything on earth. You can't use the sunlight. You can't turn it into energy. Only chlorophyll in plants can do that. All right. This week we're going to talk about what can the public schools teach about creation. There's an awful lot of misinformation going around out there. I get faxes and emails and letters all the time, especially about after what happened in Kansas. How many heard about that when Kansas said, we're not going to require macroevolution to be taught? Boy, the evolutionists came unglued. There's articles in the paper, letters to the editor. CNN has a whole section on their website about how Kansas is going to go back to the Dark Ages now. Very interesting. Let me explain what the truth is and what the law is about this. As far as anybody can figure out, there are only two options. Somebody created the world, or the world created itself. Now, there are some who say, well, no, the world's always been here. Now, hold it. That violates the first and second laws of thermodynamics. One guy wrote me an email last week, and he says, don't you think God could have created a universe that was always here? I said, think about what you're saying. If he created it, it wasn't always here. You have a contradiction of terms here. Sure, God can do what he wants, but the laws tell us the universe could not have always existed. It is winding down, so there had to be a beginning. So basically, the only two reasonable options are somebody made it, or it made itself. Evolution. Now, what should the schools teach? I get asked this question very frequently. Do you think we should teach creation in public schools? And I think it's a good question, and that's what we're going to discuss tonight. However, there's another question we should ask first. Should we have public schools? Boy, they come unglued when you even ask that question. But that really is a valid question. What right does the government have to get involved in educating your children? That goes off onto a long rabbit trail we could chase. We will forego that tonight, about the straw man that they create. We've got a videotape on that. You can call our office about the straw man. That explains all that topic if you'd like. But assuming we cannot stop the public school system by tomorrow, what should they teach in the public schools? Well, for one, the schools should teach the truth. They should teach science. If it's a science class, you teach science. What do we know? You can teach biology. Okay, kid, this is the biceps, this is the triceps, these are the extenders, these are the flexors, the radius, the ulna, the humerus, the deltoid. You can teach all the muscles, and then when they say, well, teacher, how did they get that way? Oh, we're not allowed to discuss that. You don't have to get into origins to teach science. It's unnecessary. Okay, kid, here's the different rocks. Learn the names of all these minerals. Learn the hardness test. Here's geometry. Here's mathematics. You can study all of the sciences without getting into the origins issue at all. No matter what you teach on origins, somebody's going to be upset. Right? If you teach God did it, the atheists are going to be upset. If you teach God didn't do it, now the Christians are going to be upset. It's a no-win situation. So the ideal solution is for schools to not be involved in teaching origins at all. Just teach science, period. That would be second level question. First level is, should we even have these schools? Okay, since we have them, okay, what should they do? There's an awful lot of misinformation going around saying, the evolutionists write articles and say, you can't teach creation in the public schools. Well, now just hold on a minute. Let me explain what happened, give you the history. In 1925, several states passed laws saying you cannot teach evolution. It was against the law to teach evolution. They never mentioned anything about creation. It was assumed you would teach creation. All the schools were teaching it. In 1925, there was a famous trial. This will be a quiz question. When was the Scopes trial? This book is word for word, verbatim, everything that happened in the Scopes trial, called 1925. What happened in 1925, the ACLU ran an ad in the paper all over Tennessee saying, we're looking for a teacher who's willing to admit he taught evolution and test this new law because we think we can defeat the law. They had to advertise to find a teacher who would do the case for them. A bunch of guys got together in Dayton, Tennessee at a drug